Hello, and welcome to the Conga Bonga tutorial series. In this exciting episode, we're going to learn how to generate full percussive compositions using Monkey Maestro. Let's jump in. Before we commence learning how to generate rhythms, I first want to thoroughly go through all the hit types, as well as the kind of instruments we ideally want them assigned to. Both Monkey Maestro and Monkey Mayhem's beat generators rely heavily on having well-organized instruments that have their hit types set accurately. Having a comprehensive understanding of the hit types is very essential, not only for organizing your instruments, but also for getting the most out of both beat generators that come with Conga Bonga. For our low-end hits, we have boom, stomp, and thud. These are generally used as foundation hits, and most cinematic compositions utilize these kinds of hits on the downbeat, as well as any other beats that we intend on emphasizing. Boom is for your most thundering and impactful drum hits, such as huge aggressive taikos, big booming bass drum hits, grand cassas, and the like. These are the kind of drum hits that make you feel like there's a titan entering the arena, to which every step it takes causes an earthquake. Stomp is a bit like boom, except it is reserved for moderately intense low-end hits. While yes, these are still strong and have some gravity to them, they aren't exactly max velocity like your boom hits are. Examples of this include foot stomps, mala hammers, medium to large-sized taikos, mid-sized bass drums, timpani hits, etc. Thud can include decent intensity in its hit velocity, except thud is more for the mid to low range frequency. Booms and stomps lean more into the bass frequency range, whereas thuds tend to lean more towards the baritone frequency range, so to speak. Not quite as low and deep in how it sounds, but still makes a statement nonetheless. Examples include smaller bass drums, mid-sized taikos, large deep djembe hits, large frame drums, and Roman and Persian war drums. Smack, slap, hit, and tap are your most common hit types, and cover all the small to regular sized drums, as well as ethnic drums from all around the world. When it comes to these four hit types, you actually have two strategic approaches as to how you want to categorize these. Approach 1 involves your generic and common drum hits, assigned according to hit velocity, to which smack is your maximum velocity, slap is your mid to max velocity, hit is moderate velocity, and tap is light velocity. For example, a hard smack of a generic djembe might be considered a smack. A relatively hard hit of a bongo you might consider to be a slap. A standard generic hit of a conga you might consider to be a hit. And a light tap of a dumbek, for instance, you might assign it as tap. The second approach involves our common and generic drum hits to be assigned according to frequency range. If going for a huge database where you literally include all velocities for every single one of your imported libraries, I'd recommend using the banana rating system to rate what velocity intensity your hits are for every single hit type that you have. This does take longer to set up, but the payoff and added precision you get working inside of Conga Bonga can be well worth the initial setup investment. In this case, this is what you'd assign for the following hit types. Smack would be lowish mid hits that are slightly higher frequency than thuds. Slap would be mid-range hits. Hit would be mid to high-ranged hits. And tap would be hits leaning more into the higher frequency range in comparison to most common small to mid-sized drum hits that you'd come across. Also, don't worry if you don't assign instruments perfectly on the first go. You can always change an instrument's hit type later, at any time using Monkey Morph. Out of all the hit types, smack, slap, hit, and tap have the most flexibility, to which even if you did a less than perfect job in terms of accurately assigning drums for these 4 hit types, you will still get very decent results using the beat generators. So don't beat yourself up if you've got a few slaps that probably should be taps, or a few hits that probably would suit better as smacks. At the very minimum, as long as all your standard drums are assigned one of these 4 hit types, you can't go horribly wrong here, especially when you're first starting out and learning the ropes. The rule of thumb is to try and assign your hit types as accurately as you can on the first attempt. But don't stress too much because you can always reassign hits as you go at any time. Next up, we have crack, clap, and snap. These hit types cover the kind of instruments that generally favour the backbeat. Crack is mostly for all your snare hits. Clap is predominantly for all your claps. And snap is for all your finger snaps. But you could also put all your low velocity snares and claps as part of snap as well, given finger snaps are less commonly used. Shake, as you've guessed, is for all your shakers. For example, maracas, gourd shaker, metal shaker, and more. Clack is for all your woods. For example, wood blocks, slapsticks, and puili sticks. Ding is for all your metals. For example, a triangle or a bell. Pop is for high-frequency decorative hits. For example, pops, clicks, ticks, clockwork, etc. And scrape, as you've guessed, is for anything that scrapes. Aguiro, for example. Bang is for any kind of common epic effect that has been frequently used in orchestral compositions that is or borderlines with being a sound effect. For example, an orchestral chime, an orchestral hit, a lightning strike, or a cannon blast. Some of these could easily go in the sound effect category, but if they are frequently used and are iconic enough, perhaps they could go here as well. Pow is for your big majestic tam-tam and gong hits, and perhaps even your largest and deepest cymbal crashes could also potentially go here too. Crash is for all your mid to large cymbal crashes. The vast majority of your crash cymbals and crash-like sounds will go into this category here. Shim is for both small-sized cymbal crashes as well as anything that shimmers, such as mark tree chimes, as well as any other cymbal-like effects. Even falling or decelerating effects that fade over time can potentially go here too. Swoosh is for short duration build-ups, and rise is for longer duration build-ups. Examples include sustained cymbals or white noise rises. Roll is for your small to mid-sized drum rolls. For example, snare rolls, djembe rolls, bongo rolls, etc. Rumble is for your larger low-end drum rolls. For example, taiko rolls, timpani rolls, and the like. With a better idea of how to assign your hit types, we can now learn how to generate beats with more accuracy and confidence. In order to use Maestro's beat generator, we first need to choose all the instruments that we want to work with and add them into the timeline like so. In this example, I have chosen 2 booms, 2 stomps, 3 thuds, 4 smacks, 5 slaps, 6 hits, 8 taps, 2 cracks, 4 claps, 5 shakes, 3 clacks, 2 dings, 1 pop, and 2 scrapes. I also have these decorative hit type tracks added as well. 2 pows, 3 crashes, 2 swooshes, 1 rise, 1 shim, 3 rolls, 3 rumbles, and 2 cinematic sound effects. Note that the generators don't work with your decorative hit types such as rolls, crashes, rises, and shims, given that Monkey Magic is generally used to work with these a little bit more effectively, which I'll show you in a future video. The Maestro and Mayhem beat generators only work with the hit types intended to fill out the full main body of a percussive composition. Your decorative hit types generally take the least amount of time to add in manually, so it's better to do them either manually and/or with the help of Monkey Magic for more control. Everything else can simply be assembled using one of the beat generators at lightning speed, or you can create something from scratch manually using Maestro's manual tools. Different projects may entail different approaches as to how you go about composing, depending on how surgical and precise you need to be about it. But regardless, Conga Bonga is already designed in a way that optimizes for both control and speed, whether you use the manual tools and/or utilize the generators. Now, onwards and upwards, we're going to generate a full composition using Monkey Manifest inside Monkey Maestro, and then add in our bells and whistles directly after a quick touch-up mix. In Monkey Maestro, click the Pattern Maps button to switch over to Monkey Manifest. You'll notice an extra barrel flicker has appeared, alongside a bunch of numbers resembling gesture mode. We also have buttons for each of the hit types that we'll be working with. The beat generation procedure is as follows. First, we handle the basics. Add the instruments you want to generate with as tracks in the timeline. As you can see, we've already done this step. Use the pattern bar to quote-unquote tap the rhythm that we want our generated beat to sound like. Set the multiplier and tempo so we get the pace we want for our composition. Use the bouncer tool to set our working range. This will be the timeline area that we want to generate our beat in. With the basics all set up, we now need to get an idea of how this generator works. It works in a controlled chaos manner, and works in a similar fashion to gesture mode, which we covered in the previous episode. Essentially, we can set whatever barrel slots we want each hit type to be allowed to use. If a barrel in the Monkey Manifest barrel flicker doesn't match with a barrel for any given block in the pattern bar, then it doesn't get pasted in. Now, here's where things get interesting. If I select smack, for instance, and I set these slots to be on, and I also set gesture numbers 3, 5, and 7 to be on for smack, it means that for each pattern bar block in the context of all smack tracks, it will assign each block a random gesture number out of the ones you've selected. It will also randomly pick that amount of active slots from the Monkey Manifest barrel flicker. It will then check if those picked slots also match with the slots in said pattern bar block. And for the slots that do align with each other, they will be pasted in. Note that for each individual track of a given hit type that you have, such as smack for example, it will go through a separate instance of the process for each. This means that each track will have different randomly selected gesture numbers from the ones you've made active for said hit type, before randomly selecting said amount of compatible barrels. As a result, all our smack tracks here, for instance, won't end up with the exact same generated rhythms, but they will all follow the same rules. This generator is all about controlled chaos, and once you have that light bulb moment and fully wrap your head around how this process works, you'll see that controlled chaos is exactly what you get. On the one hand, it always generates the exact rhythm that you have in the pattern bar without ever deviating from it in any way. And on the other hand, for each hit type, you basically specify how much allowance of the pattern bar rhythm that they are allowed to feature in, so that the generator's randomizer handles the rest. To further demonstrate that the generator literally obeys any rules and parameters that you set, I'll make up some hypothetical preferences for the beat that we're generating just to demonstrate this. Let's say I have this pattern bar rhythm here, as we've already been working with, and I want to generate a composition that is very slap and thud heavy, while minimal on the clacks and dings, with moderate use of everything else. I could essentially set my booms and stomps to be pretty basic like so. I might go with these couple of slots here, along with gesture numbers 2 and 3. For my thuds, I could have a whole bunch of these set here, with gesture numbers 3, 6 and 7 set, so that sometimes it's semi-thin given our number 3 here, but most times it's prominent, hence the numbers 6 and 7 here. And given we have 3 separate thud tracks, it's very likely going to sound reasonably thud heavy. However, if it happens to sound too muddy, especially if I hypothetically had, say, more than 2 or 3 thuds, we can always fix that in mixing or post cleanup if necessary. But intuitively, I think what we have here should be fine right off the bat. As for my smacks, hits and taps, I'll go for something like this. Given we want slaps to be more prominent, we'll add more slots and higher gesture numbers to put more emphasis on our slaps. As for our cracks, claps and shakes, we'll do this. As planned, I'll also go minimal on the dings and clacks, and add a few pops and scrapes for decoration. Now that we've set the parameters we want for our beat, let's now go to generate it by first selecting all the tracks we want to be included in the generation. Remember, we don't need to select our decorative tracks. We will handle them manually later. Once our tracks are selected, we can now go ahead and click the Genie lamp button. We will now see this pop up here, to which we want to ensure that the Maestro generator is selected. Let's now go ahead and click Generate. A loading bar will now show to indicate the progress of our beat being generated. Once that's done, we can now press play in the timeline to play back our generated composition. Overall, it's sounding pretty good. If it needs a touch-up mix, just adjust some of the track levels here as needed, so that everything sits nicely in the mix. You'll notice that the composition very closely resembles our pattern bar rhythm, as we can hear when we preview it. You'll also notice that our generated beat has catered exceptionally well to our preferences by making thuds and slaps more prominent compared to everything else. And our dings and clacks are also featured minimally, which we were also going for this example. Note that even though this already sounds great, you aren't just limited to using the beat generator once for a given composition. We can take things a step further and also use it to generate different layers and sections of drums that play different yet harmonious rhythms at the same time. For example, I could generate my main rhythm first, which we've already done here, and then generate a whole bunch of taps and ghost hits after, which also sounds really nice when played together. For example, if I add some extra drums here, mostly hits and taps, and then create a new compatible pattern with the beat we've generated, and then clear the generator, and then set things up for our hits and taps, I can then generate the extra layer of drums and ghost hits for this section, to which if we play it back, it adds further depth and thickness to the original beat that we've generated. I'll now go ahead and manually add in our decorative elements to really fill out this composition. Let's now give this a play to hear what it sounds like. Already, it's sounding really good, even with just a rough mix. If you ever happen to generate a beat that sounds oh so close to something great, or something that you were intending on going for, you don't have to regenerate it again with your fingers crossed. Rather, take what's been generated and use Maestro's manual tools to make those small touch-up adjustments to get exactly the kind of rhythmic composition that you're going for. Once you've got a fantastic composition together, you can now bring it over into your main DAW to add effects and give it a thorough mix to your liking. And of course, you can also mix it in the context of melodic and harmonic instruments such as strings, brass, woodwinds, vocals, and/or whatever other musical elements that you want to include with the super professional percussion section that you've now created, sounding exactly the way you want in a fraction of the time when compared with traditional workflows. Now that you've learnt how to use Maestro's beat generator, we're going to cover Sample Safari in the next episode and get ourselves all set up and ready to start using Conga Bonga's advanced beat generator, Monkey Mayhem. I'll see you in the next one.